So here it is. So we have a dog on a leash here. You'll not be surprised to observe that it's a pit bull by all appearances. Again, not a Chihuahua attack. And the pit bull's on a leash, so it's under a human being's control. And the human being is deliberately allowing sufficient slack in the leash so that the dog can bite onto this gentleman's clothing here on the hem of his shirt. Apparently, the gentleman does get a finger bit as well in the process of all that. He tells us, and then occasionally the holder of the leash will pull the dog back for a moment and then put slack into the leash so the dog can once again attack the human here. And of course, there's also a second man who's actually doing the filming. So there's arguably, if we presume the man filming and laughing is cooperating with the leash holder, we have a disparity of number situation as well. So let's go ahead and play this video and see what we get.
Get the fuck off, man. Yo, release. Get off, yo. Knock it off, yo. Get this dog off, yo. Slick, yo. Get off the fucking booty, yo. Get off. No, tell him to get off. Get the dog off, no, bro. Come on. No, let go. Get the fuck off. Get the dog off, you slick. Get off, man. No, let go. Fuck, man. Can't get this shit all up, right? Get the fuck off me, man. Man, look, the motherfucker bit my finger, bro. Get the fucking dog off of me, man.
All right, there we go. Sorry, folks, I forgot there was so much bad language in the video. So what are the possible scenarios here? The man being attacked by the dog could use defensive force against, well, he could do nothing really, right? Which is what he did. That's one option. He could use defensive force against the dog, in which case, should he be charged for that, cruelty to animals, something along those lines, he would raise the legal justification of the necessity defense. Or, in theory, he could use force against the dog's owner, in which case he'd need to raise the legal defense of self-defense, those 5 elements of self-defense. So let's consider the dog first. Here we have a pure balancing test. If he uses force against the dog, would that be reasonably deemed to be a lesser harm than whatever harm the dog was doing? Well, you kind of have to first evaluate what harm the dog was doing or imminently capable of doing, right? You're allowed to protect yourself from what's reasonably inferable as about to happen, likely to happen, reasonable prospect of happening. You can't imagine a danger, but if you have reason to believe that a great harm is about to result, and you have a factual basis for that, it would be reasonable to defend yourself against that. So what we have here is, in the moment, the dog is basically just biting the hem of the guy's shirt. So you might argue, what do we have here? We have damage to property. So what could the man do in terms of using force against the dog that would be a lesser harm than the damage to his clothing? I guess he could push the dog away. He could kick the dog, maybe not so hard as to cause a dog serious injury. Maybe harder. I mean, it's subjective here, right? Could he kill the dog? Could he shoot the dog? Could he stab the dog because the dog was damaging his jacket? That might be a stretch. A lot of people, and remember, your conduct's being evaluated by other people after the fact. So say the gentleman getting a shirt bitten pulled out a folding off knife and stabbed the dog, caused serious bodily injury, killed the dog. Now he's got to make the argument, and I'm not saying what the conclusion should be, but the legal argument would be, hey, my stabbing, my killing of the dog with the knife is a lesser harm than the dog tearing my shirt. That might be a hard sell, especially if you have any dog owner on the jury. If, of course, we're assuming here that the only danger of the dog, we'll get to greater danger in a moment. We're assuming here the only threat of the dog is to the shirt. In that context, assuming that, stabbing of the dog might be too much in that balancing. Death of dog, tearing of shirt. Because in theory, the tearing of the shirt could be made good by the dog's owner, right? You could sue the dog's owner and say, hey, you got to buy me a new jacket. You're made whole. You stab the dog to death, you can get another dog, but not that dog, right? And pet owners generally have considerable affection for their pets. So it's not like a jacket where there's no sentimental value, presumably. What if he didn't use a knife, but he used a gun and he shot the dog? Well, of course, we have the same problems with the balancing test, shooting the dog dead versus tearing of the jacket. That might be a tough sell, but you have another problem. If you discharge a gun in a crowded residential environment, an environment where there's lots of other people around, you may well find yourself charged with felony reckless endangerment to the general public, because frankly it's not that easy to shoot a dog when you're being attacked. They move around a lot, they're small targets. It's easy for a round to over penetrate a dog, and then that bullet keeps going until it hits something, right? Bullets never miss. Ultimately they may miss your intended target, but they keep going until they hit something. And now you fired around in a community with, innocent bystanders, men, women, children, and arguably you've endangered all of them. And I see that charge a lot. Felony reckless endangerment for people who fire guns when they're defending themselves against animals. So that's not good, because that's a felony conviction.